In terms of your character, Saltai, he was in a very, very dark place a lot of the time. As an actor, what do you do to prepare to just be like, especially the scene that comes to mind the most is at the end when you've resolved you're going to walk out into that water, you realize what you've done, this is probably the end of the line. How do you get into the character? Just being in such a bleak place and just having a complete lack of hope.
Well, the dressing rooms and I like to have a private dressing room when I'm doing a theater piece. You often get paired up with someone. It's not antisocial. I want my own spaces. For that very reason, on Battlestar, I would stay in my Winnebago until 0 hour for most of those scenes. The water scene's another, that's another issue, but it's that kind of thing. But a good example of that would be when I have to take Ellen's life. We had been together long enough, the crew and I, and we have a mutual respect for the work. But in that day, I stayed in my trailer, and you know, the AD would knock and bring me on set. I'd say, don't bring me on set till we're set. I went and rehearsed it and bring me when we're ready to go. And a couple times that day I would go in, and they weren't ready, and it's not like me at all. But I just turned around and walked, and I said, call me when you're rolling. Don't. And for that one, there's the concentration is the most thing. When you get young actors come on television sets or film sets, nothing, no training can prepare you for the chaos on a film set, and you have to stay focused on what you're doing. And then one of the grips will say, that looks like a bag of shit, or he looks stupid, or something, or that was terrible. And you think, oh God, don't listen to any, like, stay focused. Concentration is the biggest thing of that. But with that scene with Ellen, there's Lorena McKinnon is a musician here. And on one of her CDs, her early CD called Elemental, there's a friend of mine that sings a song on there called Carrick Fergus. Cedric Smith sings Carrick Fergus. And it is the best rendition of that song. You must listen to it at some point. I listened to that thing over and over again, and I'd just go on set when it was, because that was an amazing, put you right in that space. Because it was such a real situation that Ellen, we were behind enemy lines, we're about to be evacuated, and she has collaborated with the enemy. We can't take any prisoners, and she's got to go, and I have to do it. I'm not going to let somebody else do it. So that was a very rare, real thing. You know, sometimes you can go, okay, if you're not set up, that's all right, I'll hang in there. But instances like that. That water scene, that was cold.
It was cold.
I read the script, you know, you can't be serious. And we get out there, and of course it was a windy, gray, ugly day. And we went out and did that. And so that first day, what they did was they had a van sitting by, and I went in the water and did it. And it was tricky, because we had to get people out on the water, and there's no communication. You know, man, I've shot a lot of stuff in the water, and nobody is ever ready for it. The tides, the river current, you're never ready. But that, so man, that's okay. What can they do? So I did it, and you know, at the end, the wetsuit, yes, but it goes underneath. You know, once you get down. And so there was a van. I went and jumped in the van. They took me to the hotel room, and I went and had a hot shower and came back and set. And I was wrapped for the rest of the day. And I came back. Michael Nankin was directing it. I came back on set the next day to shoot something, and they said, "Oh yeah, we're going to reshoot that." And I said, "Yeah, great." And this kept going. I thought, it's a joke, right? And then, are you serious? So I had to do that twice.
Oh.
I had to go out and shoot it the next day. But it wasn't that bad. I mean, look, the guys surfing, or the lads and ladies surfing Tofino, for God's sake, all year round, or whatever. You know, And I'm basically an outdoorsman, so it wasn't, I pretended it was really uncomfortable. It was just a swim in inclement weather. It wasn't that bad.
You've mentioned that you're a journeyman actor, and Battlestar really was one of those unique, once-in-a-lifetime things. I'm just wondering, does it make you more apprehensive or less apprehensive to take on another regular television series?
I've always been apprehensive of taking on a series. I've never, and it's got nothing to do, it seems like, you know, when you say certain things, you go, ooh, isn't he the... and it's got nothing to do with anything other than I trained, and we started all these theaters in Toronto, like Toronto Free and Factory, in Passamarais. All started when we were starting out. Started them on lip grants, and that's what I did. And we created the shows, and I did children's theater. And then at a certain point in Canada, we got a film industry because of the taxes in the 70s, and so I started doing films, but I would do one, and sometimes if you do another one, I couldn't do another one because it becomes unreal. You have to get back on the stage, like I say, the variety, the research is what keeps me, I think, really going. And to be a regular in a television series, initially for me, was kind of confusing because you are, in a normal television series, you are doing the same thing week after week after week. And I kind of thought, if you want to be a cop, I go to cop school. Or if you want to be a doctor, you go to doctor school or whatever. And that, people who are regulars in television series take umbrage to those statements, because I don't know how to explain that. I don't mean that in any disrespect to anyone, because we all have different things that make you tick. I did a series called Cold Squad, and I didn't want to do that, really, but when they offered it to me, I talked to a number of people in the industry. George Walker, who's a playwright here, I'd done a lot of plays with him, and he happened to be out in BC at the time, and I talked to him, and he said, Hogan, you know, if we want an industry in this country, we've got to jump on board. We've got to make these things. We've got to make them ourselves. So you should do it, just for that. You know, there was reasons to do it. And I did Cold Squad. I did 2 seasons of it, and then they got rid of me. But so doing Battlestar Galactica, I mean, I did Jake and the Kid, but I did it on an episode-by-episode basis. And then what happened was I enjoyed doing it so much that they wanted to write me back in, and then I said, well, you know what, if you guarantee me 3 days an episode, I won't audition for anything else, and I won't do it, and I'll stay here and do that. I really enjoyed doing that. But then Battlestar Galactica happened. Well, I was only in the miniseries. I didn't sign anything regular. The first season, I wasn't signed a regular. I was there on a show-by-show basis. It was after season 1 or after season 2, I can't remember, that I signed on. I said, yeah, and then I'll go for this. Because Ron, I asked him every once in a while, I'd say, so are you going to keep going with this? Or are you going to? And he always said, no, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. He thought it would take 3 years to tell the story. It took 4. So it wasn't a series. You know, I didn't sign on saying, okay, I'm going to be here for this period of time. But having done Battlestar Galactica, it's career-wise, it's a little confusing because I'm a Canadian actor. I'm not based in the States. So people think I'm working all the time now. I audition now constantly for The Fringe or for these sci-fi shows and don't get the roles. I didn't get one in a show called Psych. That it was funny because of Battlestar Galactica. Now I have an LA agent, and they're one of the companies that produce a thing called Psych. And a few months ago, I got an audition for a Canadian. Because the show's shot up there, but it's an American show. A Canadian RCMP guy in his 60s, with good sense of humor, but tough. And he's Canadian, so a Canadian accent in it. And I thought, well, it'll be hilarious if I don't get this. I went and auditioned and I didn't get it. Whoa, it certainly keeps your humility or whatever intact, because I do not get hired because I'd done Battlestar Galactica. I think my manager was a little upset because we got interviewed. I guess the whole cast did after the finale, and of course Katie Sackhoff's doing 3 series, and Grace Park is doing 4, and Trugo's doing this, and everybody's doing everything. So they were saying, what are the actors doing now? And when they got to me, I said, I'm unemployed, I don't know, I'm unemployed actors. But I'm not sure what I'm going to do now. I've always been working, actors are always working on, I am always working on things. I've been working on a poetry show for years, but I never have to do it because I'm always working, I can get the job, so I don't have to do it to pay the bills yet. So I'm still working on that, and it keeps changing focus, but because of Battlestar Galactica, I've been doing these conventions, and I only started doing them last year. I don't know how much time you got, man, there's so much to say. But it certainly opened my eyes in interesting ways, and I just was a guest at the World Science Festival. And when they asked me to go to do that, I said no, because actors get outside themselves. I mean, what gives me the right to go and speak at a science festival? And this is a science festival with Nobel, you know. But then I kind of thought, I said, I know why. They're inviting me because they get media guests to get people there to be aware of sciences. And after doing that festival, which was fascinating, there was a number of people at a convention in Philadelphia a couple of weeks ago who came up to me and said they were at the science festival and saw me there. And I said, I asked every one of them if they went to the science festival for the science, or did they go because I was there with Battlestar Galactica. Every one of them said they were there for Battlestar Galactica. I said, would you go back to the science festival again? They said, yes, they definitely would. So it's opened these doors that you can make use of what it is. If I would have taken my poetry show to New York or Germany or something a few years ago, I know that when people, if they come to the show, once the curtain goes up, they'll be all over it and they'll walk out and love it. But how do I get the bums in those seats? Now, I could fill a 200-seat theater. I could fill it every night just because they're curious about what the guy playing Saul Tigh in Battlestar Galactica is going to be doing. You know, the recognition when I walked on the stage in New York to a huge audience was outsized, and it's only because I play Saul Tigh on television. And because of Battlestar Galactica, does anybody else want to ask a question, or should I tell this? Go ahead.